Our connections, our conversations, our relationships often start with a question. It's the same with God. We all have questions about life and faith. Maybe it's time to ask the questions now, or maybe it's time to ask them again. Hey, good morning. Welcome to Salem Grace. I'm glad that you are here. We are starting Point on March 16th. And if you don't know what Starting Point is, it's a small group that meets, and it's a conversation about faith. And I teach it, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll go through it together. But it's on March 16th. It's happening here at Salem Grace. And I wanted to make you guys aware of that. It's going to be here in the huddle room or wherever we can find space. We cram in there. But I would strongly encourage you, if you have not ever engaged in a small group before, something that you'd like to do, it's a great way to meet some people, and it's a great way to really just understand about your faith. I would say this: it's called Starting Point, but it's for everyone. I don't care if you've been to church for 5 seconds, if this is your first time in church, or if you've been in church your entire life. I think you would find benefit in it, so I would encourage you to do that. I wanted to make you guys aware of that. We're starting some girl groups that are going to be kicking off as well, beginning also the Tuesday before that on March 15th. Both of those are going to be from 6 to 7:30. Bible 101 is starting here at the church as well. Pastor Mark's going to be leading that. If you would love to start getting into your Bible and understanding how to read your Bible and how to make sense of it, I would highly recommend that. It's a great class. There's a lot of great tools. It's actually it's a video-based program. It's actually a cartoon. It's really cool. I know you're thinking, okay, cartoon, but it's actually really good. It's not your typical Bible study. So I would encourage you at Bible 101 to get plugged in with that. And then also one other thing I wanted to make you guys aware of really quick that's coming up, because I think this is important for our church and as a body, especially coming out of the environment that we've been in, is to get back connected with each other. One of the things that we've wanted to do around here was to start a men's group. So men, that's starting, and it's starting with breakfast. I mean, how better can do? I mean, it's just food. So I know, yes, we can applaud for breakfast all day long. One of my favorite meals. So Cloyd Bryant is leading that for us, and if you are interested in coming or helping cook, if you like to cook breakfast, that's going to happen on March 19th. It's a Saturday. We're going to start at 9 o'clock. Well, guys, if you want to help, get a hold of Pastor Mark or Cloyd Bryant. Cloyd, I don't know where you're at. He's in here somewhere. He's right here in the middle. Stand up, Cloyd. This is Cloyd. Everybody say hi, Cloyd. He loves that. So you guys can get a hold of Cloyd. I would encourage that. We're kicking off our men's ministry around here. It's called GLU, Guys Like Us, and we're going to kick it off with breakfast and start trying to get together at least once a month and do that. So just a lot of great things that are happening and coming up that you guys can get plugged into, and so I wanted to encourage you with that as well. But we are in week 2 of this series that I've called Pursuit, and really just talking about this pursuit of God toward us. We've been looking at these parables that Jesus told in Luke chapter 15, and these parables basically are just stories that Jesus told, and it's actually a trilogy. If you know if you've been around church a while, if you know this, you've heard of these stories that Jesus told. There are 3 separate stories. There are basically 3 separate parables that Jesus told about lost things. And so we're kind of diving into that. And it's really just about this pursuit. They're simple stories. I read a quote this week about these parables, and they likened it. They said if you likened all of the stories that Jesus told in the Bible, or all the parables that Jesus told, to a lake, these would be crystal clear, and you could see all the way to the bottom, right? So these stories are simple. They're not complicated. It's not hard to understand the point that Jesus was trying to get across. And they really talk about lost things, and they talk primarily about this pursuit of God toward his creation that he created. And so we talked about lost sheep. And so this week in the second story that he told was just about a lost coin. I mean, does anybody ever do you lose stuff? Are you prone to losing things? Like I lose crap all the time. Like, I lose stuff constantly. Like, this is a true story. I have no idea where my wallet is this morning. I could find it. I have no idea. I think it's in Cheryl's purse, but there's hope because because I lose stuff so routinely, I bought a tile for my wallet. Does anybody have a tile on your stuff? Who has a tile on your? Okay, yes, I see that hand. Yes, I see that hand. Okay, you're my people, right? Like, you got to have a tile, right? Because you got to know where your junk is. And I have this, if you don't know what a tile, it's like this little tracking device that you can track on your phone. And I know some of you are like, oh, I got to get one of those. Yeah, right? Like, you need one. Trust me, because I get on my phone. I can't tell you how many times I use that a week to find my stupid wallet. Because I lay it down, I carry it around, I put it in the car, I think it's in Cheryl's purse, which is a dangerous place for it to be. But I hate to sit on it. Like, I have the George Costanza wallet. And so I just lose stuff constantly, like my clothes, my stuff. My family hates it. They take all, I'm convinced that everybody takes my stuff. Like, that's what happens. Like, for some reason or not, and I've shared this in here before, and this is the weirdest thing. I didn't grow up like this, but somehow this has manifested itself in our home growing up. Like, we have, all of a sudden, my sock drawer is like the community sock drawer. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I don't know why people don't have their own socks in my house. But, like, inevitably, like, every morning, like clockwork, Caden comes in and gets my socks. Like, every morning, like, out of my sock drawer. So I'm telling the God's honest truth. I'm wearing one clean sock and one dirty sock today. Because I could not find a clean pair that matched. And it's like an Easter egg hunt. Like, you're like, oh, there's one. And you're like, I'm so excited but I lose stuff all the time, and it's just chronic, and I get frustrated. I don't know, are you the type of person that gets mad when you can't find stuff? Like, I get angry. Like, I get, like, seriously angry when I can't find stuff, and I go off on the deep end. But I get angry, and people take my stuff. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about lost things, and that's what Jesus was talking about. And so, just to put these parables in context, like, here's what I want you to know. And we talked about this last week, but if you're just joining, or if you're just joining online for the first time this week, Jesus told these stories because there was a reason he told these stories. And it was because the Pharisees, or the religious leaders at that particular time, if you go back to Luke 15 and read these stories for yourself, you will read in the first part of that, the Pharisees, and I shared this last week, but the Pharisees had pointed out to Jesus that he was eating and drinking and hanging out with sinners. He was hanging out with people who were absolutely nothing like him. He had nothing in common when you looked at them from a moral standpoint of the people that he was eating and drinking with and hanging out with. And the Pharisees, these so-called religious leaders of the Jewish faith, thought that was bad because it was like this caste system of, you're going to be unclean, you're going to be dirty, you're going to get yourself dirty by hanging out with these dirty people. And so this is when so in response to that, Jesus told these three stories. In other words, he drew them a mental picture 3 times, not just once, but 3 times. He had to get the point across 3 times. And so we're going to focus a little bit about that. In this famous trilogy of parables, it's, like I said before, it clearly paints a picture of who God is. Like, we can read these stories and get a crystal clear picture about who God is and who Jesus is and our relationship with him, right? I mean, how much he loves us, how much he cares for people who are lost. Last week, we talked about him leaving the 99 to find the one sheep. It was this one sheep that wandered off, maybe on purpose, maybe by accident or whatever. But in God's math system, he's willing to leave the 99 to find the one. So these simple stories, like, it's just crystal clear about how God pursues us, how he forgives us, how he is actively trying to restore us into a relationship relationship with him. And at the foundation of these stories, that's the meaning of it. Jesus telling the Pharisees that he was there to pursue people who were nothing like him, people who had made a mess of their lives, people who were the outcast of society, people who seemingly had no business hanging out with Jesus, people who did and said bad things were who Jesus was pursuing. That's exactly who he was there for. That's exactly who he was there to reach. And quite simply, Jesus was on a mission, and he knew it from the very time that he was a young boy what his mission was. In fact, he says it in Luke chapter 19, verse 10. Jesus says this, "For the Son of Man," speaking about himself, he's talking about himself here, "for the Son of Man came to seek," in other words, pursue, "and save the lost." That was his whole purpose. And it doesn't get much more straightforward than that. What are you about, Jesus? I'm here to seek and save lost people. That's it. That's all I'm about. I'm about finding people who don't know me and introducing myself to them and showing that I can change their life. That's what his mission was. He came to seek, a.k.a. pursue, and to save, period. And God has been pursuing a relationship with you and I and all of mankind since the day one of creation. From the time that he created Adam and Eve, he has been pursuing a relationship with us. And if you let that sink in for about 10 seconds, that will blow your mind. That the creator of the universe so desires a relationship with you that he is consistently and habitually pursuing you. So much so that he sent his son Jesus with one mission, and that was to seek and save the lost. Jesus spent his entire life in pursuit to give hope to the hopeless. And that's a common phrase, like hope to the hopeless. That's not just to sound good in my message. These people were hopeless in that day and age. If you understand Jewish culture and you understood the society that they lived in, women were bottom of the barrel. These people who were apart from the church maybe had sicknesses or illnesses. They couldn't come to church. They couldn't just walk in the temple. They were hopeless. They were at the bottom of the society ladder. And without Jesus, they literally had no hope. And Jesus gave them hope. They were the lowest of the low. They weren't touched. They weren't loved. They weren't spoken to. They weren't cared for by anyone except Jesus. That's it. And that's why they liked him. That's why they wanted to hang around with him. That's why they followed him around. What an incredible message. I mean, that's the overarching message of these parables. Jesus pursues us when we're lost, and he wants to restore us to safety of the shepherd. And we could really just stop right there and celebrate that this morning and move on. And I know some of you are hoping that I do, but I'm not. So we're going to keep going. I believe that there are other things that we can learn from this second story. And I know some of you have been around church forever, and you know this story, and you know the parable of the lost coin, and you're like, okay, what else could we possibly glean from that story? But I want to dig into it because I think we can learn a few things. And it's a short story. It's only 3 verses, okay? So let's read it. After Jesus told the first story was about the parable of the lost sheep. Hey, there's this shepherd. He has 100 sheep. He loses one. The sheep wandered off, and he goes to find it. This is the second story. Let's read it. It's in Luke chapter 15, verse 8 through 10. Says this, or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? And when she finds it, she will call in her friends and neighbors and say, rejoice with me because I have found the lost coin. And in the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. There's this joy that happens when we find what is lost. And so, question to you this morning, what just possession-wise, what is your most valuable possession? what are some things that you have that is maybe your most valuable possession? And I got to thinking about that, and there are things that I have that are important to me. Pictures. Rachel's been in the process of taking our old the old video camera, the shoulder-mounted ones. She's taking those videos and putting them on digital, and so she's got this little converter that she does, and does a great job. She'll charge you for it if you want to do that. Anyway, she does a great job, but she's taking all these old videotapes of our of them basically and their kids, and it's kind of gut-wrenching to watch. Like Cheryl and I are at a different phase in our life. Like I'm getting ready to take Caden to Montana and leave him out there till November sometime. And so our kids are at an age where they're leaving the house. And so when you look at some of you older parents, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like when you look back and you see those videos of your kids and you go, wow, what happened to the time? Those are valuable to me. Those are priceless. Those images of Morgan being super obnoxious are incredibly priceless to me. They're valuable to me. I'm like, okay, seriously, Morgan, let us see the other kids, She was a camera hog. But those are valuable, and I think we all have those things. I have, I own guns that have been given to me by my dad and my father-in-law, who are no longer here, that are they're valuable, but they're more than just value, right? They're sentimental. We have those things, right, in our lives that are incredibly valuable to us. And do you ever stop to think about what makes that valuable? What makes those things valuable? I mean, is it because they're rare? I think when you think of value, you think of monetary value, right? We think of, that's worth a lot of money. Maybe it's because it's rare, or because maybe they're just valuable because of the sentiment. And simply put, I looked up, value this morning, and things that have value are typically useful to you, they improve your situation, or quite simply, they just make you happy, right? Those are the things that are valuable to us. An apple, a dog, a clean glass of water. It's all relative, right? To each one of us, depending upon your circumstance in life. A walk on the beach. In some ways, value can't be expressed in monetary terms. In some cases, it could be a worthless object, but it has great significance to you, doesn't it? And I think that there are a couple reasons that the coin was such great value to this woman. And you have to understand the context in which Jesus told this parable. There was probably, quite possibly, a significant monetary value. When you look at the research and what would have been typical for that period of time, it could have been a coin called a drachma, which is basically, it was equal to a Roman denarius. And it would have represented a day's wages. A whole day. So that would have had significance for her, this woman. Maybe there's some scholars that think maybe it was more of a sentimental value, because in those days it was customary for when a woman got married that they would sew coins into a headdress of their wedding gown. And so there would be these 10 coins, and it was like a set. Like if you were missing one, it was like missing a diamond out of your ring. Like you wanted to find it. 10 silver coins. Maybe it had sentimental value. Regardless of why it was valuable, it was lost. And that's what you have to understand in this story. And then you dig a little bit deeper and go, okay, where did she lose it? What's the one annoying question that everybody asks you when you're looking for something that you've lost? Does anybody know the annoying question? Hey, when was the last time you had it? Duh. Like, if I knew that, I would go get it. Like, everybody asks you that dumb question, like, when was the last time you remember? I don't know. I can't find it. It's gone. I don't know where it was. If I knew, I would do that. But we can ascertain that the woman in this story that Jesus was talking about knew for a fact that she had lost it in her home. It wasn't like the sheep that wandered off. She just lost it, and of all places, she lost it in her home. Have you ever, what's the other thing that you, like when you're looking for something like that, another common phrase that I'll say is like, I know it's got to be, what? I know it's got to be here somewhere, right? Like, I know it has to be here somewhere because I didn't have it anywhere else. This is the last place. In some ways, we do think about the last place we had it. I know, and that does help sometimes because several weeks back, months back, I actually went to pay for something with my debit card. My debit card was not in my wallet. It was a miracle that I didn't even have my wallet. It's a true story. I'm on the struggle bus. So I pull out, no, my debit card is gone. And remember, the last place I remember having it was at the gas pump at Moto Mart. And this was like hours before. Like I had swiped like 4 or 5 hours earlier in the day, I went and got gas at the pump, and that's where I had used it. And I was like, well, I'm going to just drive by. What are the chances? Well, we live in Salem, and my debit card was still on the ground by the gas pump. It's Salem. It doesn't work real well because it had been run over a few times. But I remembered where it was. And I was kind of like with this lady. She knew that probably it was in her home, and she lost it in her home. The difference from the lost sheep is that the sheep got up and wandered away. The coin didn't grow legs and walk off into the underbrush, which raises another question, is how did the coin get lost? How do you lose something of great value? Obviously, this something that was valuable to her. How are you so careless that you lose something of such great, incredible value? And how in the world do you lose something like that in your own home? It happens, though, doesn't it? The value in this illustration is that the coin was lost in her home where you do not expect to find lost things. The coin didn't wander off. It was apparently in a safe place. Nevertheless, it was neglected and it was taken for granted. I read this quote about this story from Joey Nelson this week, and he says this: regardless of the reason, the woman is unaware that the coin is lost until suddenly she discovered it was gone. Isn't that the truth? Like, you don't know something is lost until you need it, until it's gone. And then you're like, oh no, it's gone. When she realizes that the coin is missing, she is stirred to a fury of activity to recover it because of extreme value to her. And that is so true. You never notice that something is missing until you need it. Until then, you assume that it's always going to be there. And we prioritize other things in our life, and somehow we neglect other things in our life until some point in time, something happened, something changes in your life, and then you realize that you need it. And that's exactly the same way with our relationship with Jesus Christ. Some of us are walking around in our home, and we have lost things, probably the most thing that is most valuable. We've taken for granted in our marriages. I can't tell you the number of marriages people that I've talked to recently that say, you know what? I just assumed they would always be there. I assumed that it was happy, and then all of a sudden it has blown up on the pad, and we've neglected our marriages. We've neglected our relationship with our kids. Do you know how many times because I have a relationship with high school students. I love high school students. They're some of my favorite people on the earth. I do. I just love them. And so many times I'll get a call from a parent that'll say, hey, little Johnny is making some bad decisions, and they're in high school, and would you be willing to talk to him? My answer is always absolutely yes. I would love to be willing to talk to that individual. But the problem is, up to that point, that parent has neglected church. They have neglected speaking truth of the word into their kids' lives, and then all of a sudden, it's lost, and they're scared to death because something of value is lost, and they've neglected it, and they've neglected it in our own home. And we have lost things inside of the comfort and the safety of our own homes. Jesus' point to the Pharisees, what they of all people should have been originally, until you notice something is gone, you won't notice it until it's gone. And then what's going to happen is there's going to be this fury to try to save it and put it back together and find it and to restore that lost thing in your life. So it just raises the question, have I lost something at home? What have you lost at home? Is it your relationship with your wife, your husband, your kids, or is it your relationship with Jesus Christ himself? If you're not careful, out of neglect, she lost something of great value to her in her own home. The better question for us as followers of Jesus Christ is, are there people, maybe a better question for us as followers of Jesus Christ is, are there people in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces that are lost? And the definition of lost is being away from a place of safety. Jesus' point to the Pharisees when he told them this story was that there are lost people that are finding home again, and they weren't excited about it. And I think there's a picture of that with the church. I think it's easy for us to come in and just do church, and I say this all the time, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but man, are we genuinely excited when somebody finds Jesus? Do we even know? That's why Jesus told the Pharisees this story. It's because they weren't really excited about these lost people that he was hanging out with and that he was having dinner with and that he was eating with and that he was seeing changes in their lives and they were following him around. They were just more concerned of who he was hanging out with. They were sheep that had never left the fold, but their heart was far from the shepherd. So, there are things in a relationship with Jesus that will get lost in the shuffle of our lives if we aren't taking care of the most valuable thing, and that is a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so we look at what the woman did in this story, and there's three things she did as soon as she recognized something was lost or something was missing of value in her life. Here's what she did. The very first thing. She lit a lamp. Scripture says she lit a lamp. Won't she light a lamp, is what Jesus said in Luke chapter 15, verse 8. The first thing the woman did was find a light. Why did she do that? Because the homes in those particular time, in this crowd that Jesus was talking to, would understand that the home where she lost her coin was dark. And she needed to light a lamp to be able to find that. True story, lost my Apple Watch. I think I shared you that with. I think it's in my house. I have no idea where it's at. I have looked the house over for it's gone. I don't have it. And so the first thing I did was get a flashlight, and I looked under the couch, and you look in the crack of the couch, and you look everywhere, don't you? You begin to shine a light in the dark places of your home, and the first thing the woman did was lit a lamp. And sometimes I think that some of us need to be able to shine a light in the dark places of our life and shine some light on it and go, yeah, it's probably where I've lost it. 2 Corinthians chapter 13:5 says this, examine yourselves and see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. And there are times in our life when we need to take some spiritual inventory and shine a light in the dark places of our home to find what we've lost. What have I neglected? What have I lost in my own home? The second thing she did was swept the room. Jesus said, and sweep. She lit a lamp and she swept the entire house. Because in the house in that day would have been a dirt floor, it would have had straw, maybe some hay. And so the first order of her business was to clean her house. I'm going to sweep this house. I'm going to get to sweeping so that I can find this thing that is of value. And I think sometimes we need to clear the clutter from our lives in order to find and restore the relationship that we once had with Jesus Christ. We need to do a little spring cleaning. For several years, Cheryl and I will just get a dumpster and have it delivered to our house just because we get so much. Does anybody else have that problem? And the worst thing is when you have a dumpster and then all of your neighbors come over and want to use it, right, John? Ecclesiastes, but some of us really need to get a dumpster and park it outside of our lives and go, okay, what are some things that I've allowed to clutter my life? My schedules. I'm booking myself too tight. I've got this going on and this going on, and I'm worried about this and this and this, and we need to declutter and address some of the mess in our lives. Ecclesiastes 3:6 says this, a time to search, there is a time to search and a time to quit searching, and a time to keep and a time to throw away. And I think there are some things that we need to probably carve out of our schedule to make room in our life for him. The last thing she did was this. She searched hard. She searched carefully until she found it. And then when she found it, she went to her friends and they rejoiced and they threw this party of like, man, aren't you excited that I found my lost coin? Jesus is constantly pursuing us. My question is, how hard are you pursuing him? Are you seeking first his kingdom? Matthew chapter 7, verse 7 and 8 says this, ask and it will be given to you. Seek. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door's going to be open. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, the door will be open. See, if we light a lamp and we shine it in the dark spots of our life, he's there pursuing us. And he wants a relationship with you so badly. My question to you this morning is just, what is lost in your home? What have you lost in your own home? What do you need to shine a light on? What is most valuable to you? And what are you willing to do to find it? And I think here this morning there are probably people that you've been taken out of circulation. Maybe you're thinking, I'm not worth very much. But let me tell you, there's somebody that is pursuing you, that is chasing after you. And we've allowed ourselves to lose things in our own home, but you're lost and you didn't wander away, but you just know that you're lost. We are God's most valuable possession. He was willing to send his one and only son to find us and bring us back home. And I am so incredibly grateful for that, aren't you? So let's seek him. Let's chase after him as hard as he chased after us and see if we can shine the light in the areas of our lives that we need to correct that. Let me pray for you this morning. Fathers, thank you so much for your word and your goodness to us. Thank you for this gospel truth, Lord, that you love us so much. And Lord, we know that, Lord, if we're not careful, just out of neglect, we can lose sight of things in our own home and in our own lives. I pray, Father, that you would help each and every one of us here this morning to do that evaluation, that we would shine a light, that you would shine a light in those dark places of our life. Lord, that we would be willing to surrender that to you and that it would shed light on the things that we've lost and the things that maybe it's just a closer relationship with you, or maybe it's just time that we get to spend in the Word, or maybe it's time that we spend with other people in a small group, or time that we haven't made time for that in our lives because of our schedules and everything that we have going on, Lord. And maybe help us to realize the value of something that we have, and that's this relationship with you that is so much more valuable than anything else that we have in our lives. Help us to prioritize that in our lives, Lord. Thank you for loving us and pursuing us the way you do, Jesus. We love you this morning. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Hey, thanks for listening to me this morning. Before you guys leave, there's a couple of things I'm not done quite yet. So, psych, told you. One of the things that we don't talk about here a lot around here very much is in our worship and that type of thing. I just shared. I really want you to encourage you to get involved in one of those grow groups. Please come back and try to figure out what that is. Before you leave, though, I have a really quick story I want to share with you. One of the things that we've stopped doing around here since COVID is passing an offering plate. And I know this is like some of you are going, okay, here we're going to beg for money. God has blessed our church. We continue to be debt-free. We continue to be able to operate and do whatever we need to do. There are some offering things. There's one over here by the coffee spot and one over here, 4 ways to give. I would just encourage you, if you're not currently giving, I want to ask my friend Doc Bunnell to come for real quick. Can you bring him down, John? I just want to share this story. I heard a story this week. John is my neighbor, and Doc Bunnell is my neighbor. And Doc Bunnell has an individual that helps care for him. And I want to just share, I wanted him to share this story with you real quick and share what happened to him this week. Doc, thanks for being able to share. I'm going to give you this.
Am I on?
You're on now. Go ahead.
Okay, as Trent said, my name is Don Bunnell. I'm a retired physician and veteran of the Korean conflict, and I'm living now in Florida in Salem. I get my cities mixed up with my son John. I grew up in Louisville. My practice was in Florida, and now I'm living in Salem. And John said, "Dad, you ever think when you were 92 that you and I'd be living together?" I said, "John, I never thought I'd be 92. But anyway, I have 2 wonderful women that help me. And Trent was talking about genuine faith. This one woman has... sorry, what I call genuine faith. She's been so good to me. And this last week, she said, "Doc, does your church teach the gospel?" I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "They do." I said, he has a scripture on the wall every Sunday morning and teaches out of the good book. And she said, "Well, my church just closed, and I didn't know they were going to close." And she said, "I've got some tithing money that I owe the Lord." And she said, "You think your church would like to have that?" I said, "Well, yeah,
No.
I'm sure they would." And anyway, she gave me $540, and that was tithing. I said, "Molly, aren't you going to need that money?" She lives in a trailer out in the country, and she works all the time. And she said, "That's not my money, that's God's money." So anyway, I'm here this morning to... John, where's the money? Give Trent this $540.
Thank you.
And it's just an example, I think, of what God can do in people's lives and in the lives of congregations. And I'm so grateful. When I told Molly, I said, when I first started going to that church, I could feel the presence of God. And I said, I didn't know the music, most of it. I'd never heard of it. But I said, it ministered to me. And I said, the minister ministered to me, and I really felt the presence of God in this church. So I just tell you this morning, keep it up.
Amen. Thank you, Doc. John told me that story, and I think through COVID there's been a lot of churches that have closed, and we are fortunate to be part of this body. And this lady that he shared this story about, $540, I can tell you, is a lot of money to her. And their church closed and gave back her tithe, and she wanted to make sure that she put it back where it belonged, and that was God. And so I just wanted to share that with this morning. So let's continue to worship in our tithes and your faithfulness. Thank you so much for being a great church and for allowing God to pursue you. Have a great week. Thanks for being here.